Hello. Um, I don't know if you watched the podcast episode that I released yesterday. I'll put a link to it in this video. But it's talking about Joel Goldsmith and Christian mysticism and the idea that we don't have to add anything into our lives on a spiritual level. Spiritually, we're perfect always, right? So pragmatically speaking, a lot of the time it's really more like we're subtracting what's not necessary from our lives as opposed to adding something into our lives. But really it's not even about subtraction or addition or anything. It just is. Everything just is. Spiritually, if we're going to use that word, things just are. And I think this video is about how that can't be sugarcoated. It can't be sugarcoated in the sense that when you're trying to, manifest a relationship or a certain amount of money or, better health, you're trying to do that. And that's a personal, human objective. And that's fine. But spiritually, you're doing nothing. I of my own self can do nothing. Because everything's perfection. And by recognizing this perfection, if we do want to go at these LOA manifesting principles from a spiritual perspective, which people say they want to do, and in my experience, quite often don't actually want to do, which is fine. But if we do want to kind of take this spiritual perspective on it, you can't sugarcoat that everything is perfect right now. Everything's perfect. You don't have the house, seemingly. You don't have the partner. You don't have the job. You don't have whatever. It's your human mind. It's my human mind. Recognizing the perfection of right now, that you lack nothing. Shifts you from that to something else, perhaps you could say, if you're using human language. But it also psychologically makes you drop the want. Subtract, you could say, the want from your life, because you realize the subtraction is reality. Koda Sawaki used to say, enlightenment is loss, And then we see the perfection that's what's real. And like I said in the podcast episode yesterday, this is a tough pill to swallow. You can't sugarcoat it. This is much more aligned, you would say, with more mystical teachings, like that we're usually familiar with, and from like the East, like Zen teachings, some non-dual teachings. But also, Christian mysticism talks about it too. But it's like, it's deep, man. And we can tie it together with practically manifesting better things in our life, right? But if we take this type of approach, if we're claiming to use spiritual language, which people do all the time, they use this grandiose spiritual language. If you're going to use spiritual language, you reach this point where everything is perfect. And most people I see in the LOA space today, the manifesting space, they're trying to sugarcoat that. I feel terrible, like my life's not going well, nothing is working for me. Everything's perfect. That's not a manifesting teaching, that is a teaching of truth. If we get real. But from a personal perspective, it might hurt, it might humble us. It doesn't matter. So when you hear, a lot of modern people talk about these concepts, a lot of modern teachers, not just in LOA, but in general, quote unquote spiritual teachers talk about getting all these things in their life. I just say be wary, have your eyes open. Because like what Goldsmith was talking about in that episode yesterday, Kodo Sawaki, somebody like that, was talking about. Feels a little bit different. Feels a little bit more about God with a big G than about, anything all that personal. And that guy with the big G makes me feel good. And that's why, I love to talk to you guys about this on this channel. I love to coach and counsel people on this. Coach is a silly word. People were using it when I started doing it a couple of years ago. When I started coaching a couple of years ago, I used to just call it counseling. I love to counsel people on this subject because this is the underlying, you could say, or the deeper truth behind so many of these great spiritual manifesting teachings. Perfection's here now. And that is something that I like to recognize. That I hope I can help you in my own small way, help you recognize. Because you and me fade away when we recognize this. And that's very powerful and very peaceful.